Greetings to another video. Today's video is going to be my winter training, what I do on Zwift, what I do outdoors, and generally what I kind of do in winter time. So hopefully it will help you. Got some tips coming for you as well if you are wanting to keep fit or get fitter during winter. And just want to start off by saying I know Zwift and indoor turbo sessions are not for everyone, so don't feel like you have to watch this, obviously. But I really get a lot out of it, and I think it is just so good for specific training when it's cold and icy outside and it's not as enjoyable to go out and do like 200-300k odd axes. So let's have a quick look. I've got my computer here, so I won't be looking directly at you. I'm going to do last week, obviously, because it's the last full week of riding that I did. So Monday's session was a tempo session. It was a 40-minute effort between, I've got it all written down, 220 and 240 watts, which is this one. So let's look at, oh, by the way, if you want to follow me on Strava, the link is in the description box. You can see all of my training on there. So I think I was a little bit under it actually. So yeah, 40 minutes, 218 watts. So yeah, it's a couple of watts under what I should have been at the bottom end of that. I probably just felt a little bit tired. So yeah, that's that one. And I generally set I always set my trainer to erg mode so that I kind of keep it in a set wattage when I'm doing those efforts. So for that one, 220 to 240, I generally put it in 230. But I feel like because Zwift lets you kind of come down before it tells you to go harder, I figured this out in the middle of the week. I've just put it at the top end of it so that even if you're feeling more tired, you can still stay in that bracket. So that's what I've started doing. Tuesday and Wednesday I was in London for work, so there's no set session there. Thursday, back to some sweet spot training. So the sweet spot was 3 lots of 12 minutes between, I've got it all written down, 245 to 260 watts. So on these ones, I was again a little bit under, and I think it was on this day I was like, I felt fine, why was I not hitting it? I just needed to move the erg mode up. So it was a harder number. Friday was a good day. That was when I changed the mode on the erg thing, so I actually hit the numbers I was meant to hit. And you can probably tell by my excitement. Okay, properly getting back into Zwifting, 2 times 30. I was pretty pleased with myself. So that session was 2 lots of 30 minutes. 2 lots of 30 between 220 and 240 watts. Which I did, 228, 234. And that felt like, I felt really strong on it, but I then did a race that night on Zwift. And I'd not really planned, well I had planned in the morning I guess to do it. I just thought it was like, I'll see how I feel after I've done that. And I just felt really good, so I was like, yes, I'm going to do it. Mentioned it to Mark and he was like, yes, go on then, do it. So I would always ask him if I want to do anything that's veering off my training plan. I will ask and he'll kind of work my plan around to fit it in and accommodate it. So I did I don't even know what it was, but TT race. I didn't realise it was TT race. I was like, where is everyone? And then I realised it was an individual time trial. So that total time was 40 minutes, but the actual moving like race part I think was about 35, and I held 3.5 watts per kilo over that time. Then Saturday and Sunday. Saturday was meant to be like an endurance 90 day, which is keeping my watts really steady between, I think it's 140 and 190, let me just double check, yeah, 140 and 190. And I went on like a bit of an urban exploration ride, which is Monday's video, so if you've not seen that, have a look. Testing out the new Canyon Grail, so gravel bike. Just a little bit of that was just kind of a bit of a pootling around. However, it was longer than I expected. It was about 4 hours, I think. Yeah, 4.5 hours. Very steady though. So yeah, I did that. Sunday was this monster. And this was just a free road ride. So this is when I went out with Rafa. The headwind was brutal. I felt like it was a really like tough day out. There was some fast riders and I'm always going to push to try and keep up. So that was like 4-hour riding. But it was hard. It was so windy. But I like the variation. I like to have some days where it's a set plan. Some days I like just to be able to go out and do really what I want to do. You've got to have a little bit of like just playing out with your mates rather than a set turbo session. But I like both. So that is my training plan for the week. I reckon, shall we give Mark a ring now? Hang on. Right, so if you just want to introduce yourself to the viewers.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, my name's Mark. I'm the Director of Transition Cycle Coaching, and I work very closely with our Performance Director and Founder, Jodie Warrington, who I think has appeared in one of your videos a few months ago.
Did a Q&A.
So, that's me, and I obviously coach a few riders, including yourself.
Yeah. So the reason that thank you so much for being on the channel and answering a couple of questions, but it was just going over like my weekly training just to kind of explain, because I can't explain as good as you can obviously, about why I'm doing what I'm doing. So this week I had 2 tempo sessions, a sweet spot, a 90-minute endurance ride, which I did go a little bit over, and then a free road ride. So can you just tell us like why I'm doing that now and kind of what's the benefit of that?
Yeah, so we've been coaching you for just over a year now, so we know that you've established a good aerobic base over the last 12 months. So what we've been trying to do is tailor your training for the demands of the events that you've got coming up this year. This year you've sort of picked that you want to do multi-day endurance events, so some tour around Scotland and some longer Audax type rides, but you've also chosen to do some crit racing as well. So you've really thrown a bit in there. So we're trying to balance the training between high intensity and long aerobic endurance rides. So this week just gone, you've done. We'll start at the weekend and work our way back. So last weekend you did 2 4-hour rides pretty much, back to back, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. And what we're trying to do is establish a wide and deep aerobic base for you with back-to-back sessions so that you're used to riding the bike for long periods of time, but back-to-back. Because if you've ever done a back-to-back event, the second day getting up and getting on the bike is hard. And if you're not used to doing that, it can be a bit of a shock. But you do soon realise that after about half an hour of spinning the legs on that second day, everything comes good. It's never as bad as you think it's going to be. So that's the reason why we do those long back-to-back sessions. In addition to that, you've also done a couple of tempo sessions. So those tempo sessions are establishing a fatigue resistance. And what we do is they're longer intervals. They start around 15 minutes, but you build ideally towards 60 minutes. And
I've got that one today. I'm not looking forward to that.
That's the kind of goal. That's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to work towards a 60-minute interval. Then we want to build in a little bit of intensity to this as well, which is why we then do a sweet spot session in the week. Now, sweet spot session is, if you're working to power, it's around about 90% or 88 to 92% of your FTP. And again, we want their shorter intervals, or at least they start off shorter. And again, that's sort of adding the sort of cherry on the top of the tempo stuff. This gives you a really good fatigue resistance base. We would tend to work sweet spot into most people's training, regardless of whether they're doing crits or longer endurance rides. The crit racing sessions tend to be more sprint-based sessions, and when we get to the end of this base phase, or the base and build phase, then we'll look at assessing what your goals would be for the year. And the training would kind of split depending on what your goals would be. If you wanted to be a crit racer, we would be looking at sprint intervals where you may need to be producing high power numbers out of hairpins on a crit race, several times in a lap. Whereas Whereas if you're training for a 400k Audax, sprinting is irrelevant. You don't need that. So we'd be looking at targeting your FTP, and pushing it up from below, but we wouldn't be looking at giving you hard repeat sprint intervals. It's just not relevant.
What tips would you have for? Obviously, you can't be specific to each individual that's watching this video, but what are some kind of general tips for winter training? Would you say?
So there's some fundamental tips that will apply to everyone. So if you think of building training fitness as building a house or a pyramid, you can't build the roof or the top of your pyramid without a base or a foundation. So there's no point in through the winter going out and hammering high intensity sessions. They will spike your performance quite quickly, but your form will drop off very quickly as the season approaches, because you have built that fitness on nothing. There's no aerobic foundation there. So just think very clearly about what you need to do to establish that base. And then you've got to just have a progressive mindset. So what have you done this week? How can I improve that next week? And how can then I improve that again? So it's tends to be through stretching out the interval duration and manipulating the time between interval duration and recovery, rather than intensity. So rather than going higher heart rate or higher power output. So have a think about that. Also, for winter training especially, you need a turbo.
Yes.
It's unpleasant, it's sweaty, it's boring, but if you can, get yourself a turbo. You don't have to get yourself a £1,000 smart turbo. You can get yourself a dumb trainer.
Yeah.
And if you've got a power meter, then you can work in the sessions based on power. You'll get a much better quality workout doing an hour in your pain cave than slipping around the Cheshire Lanes or wherever you live. So my third tip would be about illness, really. What do you do when you get ill? Well, I tend to tell people just to stop training for a few days. You've got to think of the bigger picture. There's no point in grinding yourself down and wearing yourself completely out for the sake of a head cold. You might as well have a few days off the bike. It's not going to impact your performance come next summer. So take a few days off the bike. You're going to feel a bit stale. You're not going to lose much fitness, but you're going to feel stale and blocked when you return to the bike. So if you work into a training plan, don't just try and pile straight back into where you left off. Take a few days, spin the legs out in zone 2, get that fluidity back into your riding. And then everyone's different. Everyone will come back into the plan at a slightly different point. So have a think about backtracking a week and try and just say, well, if I was on a 3x15 minute interval, I'll just try a 3x10 just to see how I get on.
Thank you so much for the tips. Thank you for the chat. And I'm sure we will see you again in the future.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Farewell.